share to you the notebook. Okay, so I think we can start now so that because this will take time, because there are lots of examples to be discussed. So as you have seen from the intended learning outcomes for this module, we're supposed to discuss about the different control structures in Python programming. And from the notebook, which I will later upload so that you will have a reference notebook. Okay. The definition of loops in Python is that it provides ways on how we can execute looping in our programs. So Python programming language provides following types of loops to handle looping requirements, and Python provides 3 ways for executing the loops. While all the ways provide similar basic functionality, however, they differ in their syntaxes and conditions checking time. Alright? So the first thing that we should understand is the while loop. Now, in your first programming language, which is C language, you already learned how to use while loop. But in Python, while loop is used to execute a block of statements repeatedly until a given condition is satisfied. And when the condition becomes false, the line immediately after the loop in program is executed. So the following syntax, as you can see from here, while, so we'll have to use the keyword while here, and we have the expression. Okay, and after the expression we have our statements. So these statements can be either following the while expression, or it could be on another line indented. Okay, so we'll have some examples of that later. But take note here that all the statements indented by the same number of character spaces after a programming construct are considered to be part of a single block of code. You will understand that later. Okay, Python uses indentation as its method of grouping statements. So let's have this first example. So you have in this example we have a while statement here, and then we have this expression. The expression tells us that the counter is less than 5, followed by a colon symbol. So once we enter this, the next line would be indented, meaning that these indented lines, as mentioned, this indented line will be considered to be part of this single block of code, meaning these are all single block of code. Okay, meaning that these indented lines here, 4 and number 5 line, belongs to the while condition. Okay, so as we have defined on our while statement, the block of statements will continue to execute while the condition is true. But if the condition is false, then if there are more statements following this, they will be executed after the while condition. Okay, we'll give some examples of that later. So let's say we have a counter here, we have a variable counter, and then we have initialized it to a value of 0. Okay, now the condition while tells us that the counter is less than 5, which is actually is true, right? Because right now our counter is equal to 0. It is less than 5. Definitely the statements, or the statements following the while statement will continue to execute until this condition inside this parameter of the while statement will become false. Okay, so let's see what is the output of this. So let's run this number 1 code. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if we try to simulate the program, so the condition here states that the counter is less than 5, which is true. Okay, so we will now have to increment the counter by 1. So this counter is also similar to the equation counter is equal to counter plus 1. Okay, so basically they this statement here tells us that we are incrementing the counter by 1 and putting it in our variable counter. Okay, since this statement counter is less than 5 is true, then this will execute. That means the counter will execute and the counter will be incremented. Now our counter now is no longer 0, but after line 4 the counter now will become 1, and then after that the immediate statement following the incrementation of the counter is the print, no? So we'll have to print the counter, which is 1. Okay, now the while conditions tells us that the block of statement will continue to execute until it becomes false. So while this is true, it will print the next value of the counter, which is 2, because right now if the counter is equal to 1 and we added 1, that will be 2 and it will print 2. And at the same time, for the next iteration, for the next loop, it's going to be 3, and for the next loop it's going to be 4, and for the next loop it's going to be 5. Why is it that it stops printing after 5? Because we know that if we try to increment this counter by 1, it's going to be 6. Okay, and since this is already false in that category, in that option, because we have already implemented we have incremented the counter by 1, it's now going to be 6, then therefore the print counter now will not print anymore our value. So let's say if we have, for example, we have another statement here to print for example, end of program. Okay, and then we try to execute this. That means this will only print if this statement here will become false. So if we run this program, definitely after 5, which is still true to this case, but after 5 it will print the next statement following the block of the while condition. Okay, so that will be the case for our while condition. So it's different from the C language that you've learned in your first programming language. However, the concept of the while statement is typically the same. No? They are only different in terms of syntax and in terms of simplicity when we are doing it in Python language. Alright? So any questions so far? Any questions so far? So if there are no questions, I will continue. Okay, I think there's a question here coming from Hizola. He's typing. C and C++ po ba is almost the same? They are almost the same, but we have not studied about C++. Now we studied about C language. Sa TIP Manila, C++ po ang tinuro sa amin. Yes, it's almost the same, no? Typically in terms of nag-iba lang siya in terms of syntaxes, but most probably when you try to program using C language and C++, you'll have the same output. Okay? So other than that, mayroon pa po ba tayong question? Okay, anyway, wala na sigurong question. So if there are some questions, I would lovely like to answer it. Okay, so let's continue. So here's another example in example number 2. So we have initialized the value of counter. So basically this is the same, no, as the first example. However, in this case, instead of printing the counter, we can initialize the value of this parameter to hello OOP students. So what will you think the output of this? So most preferably it will print hello every after loop. Okay, and how many times will it print hello OOP students? We know for a fact that it will print 5 times. Okay, because of the parameter used here, which is counter is equal to less than 5. Okay, so let's try to print this and let's try to execute this. So that's it, no? So we printed it 5 times. Okay, so if we try to change this, for example, we try to change it by 10. If it is less than 10, it's going to print 10 times. Okay, so that's the concept behind the while. No, it will continue to execute until it supposedly encounter a condition that the condition will be false. So it will get out of the block while block statement or while block executions until it becomes false. While the condition is true, it will continue to execute the block of codes following the while condition. Okay, I hope that is clear to you. Now it says here that using else statements with while loops, can be done. Okay, as discussed above, while loop executes the block until a condition is satisfied. Now when the condition becomes false, the statement immediately after the loop is executed, and the else clause is only executed when your while condition becomes false. Okay, so if you break out of the loop or if an exception is raised, it won't be executed. Now we have here the if else condition. Okay, so we have the following syntax. So we have an if statement. Now we're using the keyword if here, and then we have a condition here followed by a colon, no? So remember that after the colon, when you try to press enter, okay, you try to press enter. For example, I will insert something above. Okay, so this is an if statement. Okay, for example, if C is less than 5, okay, following that we will use a colon. Okay, and when you try to enter this, automatically Python will have to indent, no? That means the codes here following the if statement is part of the if condition. Okay, so that should be the case when we try to write an if statement, or like in this example, when we write the while statement, when we try to press enter, it automatically indents on the new line created here. Alright, so in the if condition, okay, so this is the syntax of the if condition. Okay, and then of course it's indented here as we can see from here, and then the if condition, if this is true, it will execute these statements right here, but if it is false, it's going to proceed with the else condition, no? And the else condition here that we can see will execute these statements. So this if condition will be executed, okay, while this is true, but if it is false, the else conditions will be executed. So while loop are similar to this, no? The while condition that we have here will execute while the while condition is true, and the else condition here will execute these statements if the while condition becomes false. Okay, now we can combine the, actually in C language we did not have an example, no? I thought that your instructor did not give you an example about this, no? Because we usually partner the if and else statements. We don't partner while and else statements. But in Python, we can do it, no? We can combine the else statements with the while conditions, no? Like in this case, we have a typical example of counter equal to 0, and then the condition is that the counter is less than 5, and we increment the counter. It will definitely print hello world, and then after executing this, if all of these are true, okay, it will continue to print hello world. How many times? 5 times. But if the condition becomes false, it will print the else statement following the while statement, which is print goodbye world. Okay, let's try to execute this to see how many times did the hello world prints. 5 times. And then the goodbye world, since the condition here is already false, it will execute the else statement now coming from here, which is to print the goodbye world phrase. Alright, now we can also use a single statement while block, no? Just like the if block, if the while block consists of a single statement, then we can declare the entire loop in a single line as shown below, no? Instead of putting this statement here, we can actually put that print statement in just a single statement, or single line. Okay, so we can do that in Python, but in I don't know if we can do that in C language. I haven't tried it, but we can also in Python we can do a while statement here without actually inserting it into another line, typically like that, no? So we can actually put it in a one line. However, there's a note here. It is suggested not to use this type of loops, as it is a never-ending infinite loop where the condition is always true and you have to forcefully terminate the compiler. So in this case, as you can see, the count here, okay, the counter that we made here should be equal to 0. And we note for a fact that this condition will always remain true. Okay, in this condition, the count here is equal to 0. Okay, and since the count here is equal to 0, it meets the condition here, which is true. Okay, so definitely it will continue to print hello world, okay, indefinitely, meaning it will continue to print hello world without end. So when we try to execute this, Python is going to execute this for a very, very long time, until such time that we will try to terminate the kernel or stop the program. Okay, we will now terminate the compiler. In this case, you can see it continues to print hello world. Okay, walang katapusan to. It definitely will not end until such time that we try to stop the kernel. Okay, now we interrupted the kernel and we try to restart the kernel. Okay, so definitely it will stop now. It stopped executing right now, so that we can proceed now for our next topic. Okay, now that means when we try to use the while condition, okay, remember to evaluate our while condition that has a terminator. Okay, we should not create a program that the while condition will always remain true for the rest of the time. Okay, so that definitely will be the case. Your program will not end if your condition for the while is always true. Okay, so definitely the while condition should have an else statement or a terminator that will terminate the execution of the while statement, because it's going to execute while the condition is true. Okay, now another type of loop in Python is for loops, no? And for loops are used for sequential traversal. Okay, for example, traversing a list of string or array, okay, etc. In Python, there is no C style for loop. Okay, you learned from C or C++, okay, this syntax here, for I is equal to 0, which is the 0 here is the initialization, and then the comparator here, which is I is less than n, and then we have the incrementation. Okay, in for loop we use for in. Okay, for in. Okay, for in, so we use for plus the word in, which is similar for each loop in other languages. Okay, so let us learn how to use for in loop for sequential traversals. So the syntax for loop, okay, is for iterator variable. So that means we need to provide an iterator variable, something that will iterate in our variable, and then we use the word in sequence. Now, sequence will be the it can be a list, it can be a string, it can be an array, etc., etc., followed by the statement. If the statement here is true, then the following statement will be executed. No, it can be used to iterate over a range of iterators. Now, let's try some examples here. For example, we have a number here. Number is equal to 4. So for x, so therefore x here will be our iterator variable. No, so this variable will iterate in our sequence. No, in this case, we use the function range. Okay, this is a Python keyword. That means that this range method or range function will be called. Okay, and it will start from 0. So if we try to shift and tab this, we will see here some statement. No, this is the function range, and then it's going to have the following arguments. Now we have the self and the args and the quarks. Now we'll deal about this later. Now don't worry about these terms. No, so definitely from the x here, which is our iterator variable, we're going to iterate now using this variable, and then we're going to iterate it from this range of number. And what is that number? The number inside here, which is 0 up to the number. Our number is initialized at 4. Therefore, our iteration will be from 0 to 4. So if we try to print our x, this will be the result. Okay, let's try to execute this. So that will be from 0, and how many times it will iterate? Until 4. So you will not see number 4 here, okay, because the iteration starts from 0. But if we try to change this to from 1 to the up to the number, so we will have a different result. For example, that one, no? So it will only iterate from 1, 2, and 3, not including the 4, because this 4 is the boundary of the range. Okay, so but if we start from 0, so definitely it will start printing the numbers 0 up to number 3. Okay, so that's an example on a Python program to illustrate iterating over a range of 0 to n minus 1. So remember n minus 1 here. That means if your n is your number, okay, you'll have to subtract minus 1, and 4 minus 1 is equal to 3. Therefore, we are only printing it until n minus 1. Okay, so that will be the case for printing. So if you want, for example, to print, for example, you want to print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. If you want to print, you can just add something here, like for example, you can add just number plus 1. Okay, so that it will print 0 up to 4. So if you want to print up to, for example, up to 10, you can just add the number plus 7 maybe, so that it will print up to 10. Okay, because 4 plus 7 is 11, and 11 minus 1 is equal to 10. Okay, so that will be the case, no, for the if you want to extend your the range of your number. But in this case, in our example, we are just printing 0, our starting point, okay, and then the number minus 1, which is 4 minus 1 is equal to 3 right here. Okay, another example here, no, instead of starting it in a range of 0, we can definitely use this number right here, no. For example, if we want to print something like this, and what is the output of this? The output of this will be from 0 up to 4, because 5 minus 1 is equal to 4. So if you want to print, for example, up to 9, you can just print in the range of 10, so it definitely will print up to 9. If you want to print up to 10, 0 to 10, then you have to print for x in range 11, then it will print 0 up to 10. Alright, so that will be the case for our example. Okay, another example here is that in our definition for in loop, no, it says that it traverses a list or string or an array. So definitely we can actually print and we can traverse a list, no? Meaning the meaning of traverse means we can actually print the contents of our string, of our list or our array, and we can actually do it, and we can print it everything inside our list. Now in this example, let's try to print, for example, here, this is just to print a list iteration. This is just the title of this example. And then we have a list, okay? And later I'm going to explain to you what are lists, what are tuple, what are dictionary, what are strings, etc. Let's just say that we have a variable here, and this variable is what made up, no? And what made up a list, no? So a list is just a list of components inside, no? So usually it is enclosed with a open and closed square brackets. So when you see a square bracket here and a square bracket here, then this is what we call a list. Okay, and inside the list we have this following strings, no? Welcome, and then OOP, that's another element, and this is another element, no? Students. So how many elements now we have? A list of 3 string elements. So definitely that will be the case. Now if we want to print everything here, okay, we want to print welcome OOP students, no? All the elements inside our list. So we can use for x, this is our iterator variable, and then we use the word in, and then you use your variable. Your variable is my list, okay, and then we use the semicolon. So actually we can just use print x here, no, without executing that. But actually it is better to look this way, okay? So we can now print everything in our list, no, using print x. So this statement, no, for in, okay, for in loop, using the iterator x in my list will print all the contents of this list. Okay, let's try to execute. That's the list, no? So this list iteration is this statement, no? Print list iteration. Now we printed the string list iteration, and then we printed all the elements of our list. So welcome OOP students. Yan. There are 3 elements. Now if we give another element, for example, welcome OOP students, no? Let's, for example, inside our list we have a number, for example number 25. Okay, so how many elements now we have in our list? We have 1, 2, 3, and 4, including 3 strings and 1 integer, which is 25. So when we try to look, no, inside this elements of this list, we can therefore see that the output now will become welcome OOP students, and then including the integer 25 here. Alright? So that will be the case for our example here. No? Now that we have iterate over a list, let's try to have another example. No? This time, we are iterating over a tuple. Okay? So a tuple is different from a list. I told you that the how to recognize a list is that a list is in between an open and a closed bracket, no? Square brackets. But in a tuple, okay, a tuple is also a list, but this type of list is immutable, meaning you cannot change the value of the contents inside your tuple. Okay, so how do we recognize a tuple? So it's also enclosed with an open and closed parentheses. Okay, therefore anything that is inside this will become an element of the tuple called my tuple. Okay, so basically it's the same, no? So when we try to print this is a tuple iteration, welcome OOP students. Okay, so however it printed here including the 25. You know why? Because we printed X and not my tuple. Okay, we printed X here, and our X here is directly connected here, no? Actually, so it printed X here, and we need to change this. Instead of my list, we need to change this as my tuple. Okay, so actually this for loop is calling the my list, no? Because I wrote here my list instead of my tuple, but now we will have a different output. Okay, so this will be now the output, no? So it's now traversing our tuple, which is my tuple, and the contents of the tuple is welcome OOP students. Okay, so we have used an example of a list, a tuple. Let's now go with a string. No? Actually, we already mentioned that we can also iterate. No? The for loop can be used to iterate not only in a list, not only in an array. We can also traverse using a string. No? For example, this is a string. No? The name of the variable is my string, and the string here is object oriented. No? This is a very long list. It's made up of 2 words with a white space in between. No? This is a white space. We call it white space in programming. When you see a blank space, that is considered to be a white space. And when you use for loop, no, in this particular string, it will also include looping on this white space. Okay, so basically the syntax will be the same. For X in my string, let us print X. Okay, let's try to see what will be the output. So that's it, no? So we now iterate over the elements of the string. And what are the elements of the string? It's made up of character O, B, J, E, C, T, including the white space here, no? But if we did not put a white space here, okay, so that will be the case, no? There will be no white space here. And if we put, for example, a different character, let's say for a dash like that, it will definitely have a dash here, a dash character. Okay, but in our example, I only created a white space. Okay, so that will have to iterate also on the white space. So all of the elements of the string are now printed. Okay, so that's an example. Also, I told you that the for in loop can be used also to iterate on a dictionary. Okay, what is a dictionary? Actually, a dictionary is also a list. Okay, and this is a function. Okay, so you can see from here, this is a function. That means that this variable, we are declaring it as a dictionary. Now, what is the content of this dictionary? The content of this dictionary are the following. So we have an element XYZ, and the content of that XYZ is equal to 1, 2, 3. Okay? And then we have an element ABC, a key element, and a pair of 3, 4, 5. So if we want to iterate on this dictionary, okay, the syntax is the same for X in my dictionary. Okay? And then we print the %s and the %d, the string and the integer, okay, using the following variables, which is X. We are iterating on X, and we are trying to iterate in our dictionary using our variable, iterator variable, which is X. So the output of this will become like this. Okay, this is now our dictionary iteration. We iterate from the values of XYZ, which is 1, 2, 3, and ABC, which is 3, 4, 5. Okay, don't worry about this because we have a separate lesson about what are lists, what are tuples, what are dictionary. Later on, I have to discuss this, no? Because the topic that we're trying to discuss right now is how to use the for loop, no, in iterating using strings, etc., etc. No? Okay. Now we can also iterate using indexes, no, or of sequences. So how do we do that? It says here we can also use the index of the elements in the sequence to iterate. No, the key idea here is to first calculate the length of the list, no, and iterate it over the sequence within the range of this length. No, as an example, now that we have a list, okay, we have a list here, and how many elements do we have? We have 3 elements: welcome, OOP, and students. Okay, so we can actually use another iterator variable. Like in this case, we use index. No, index. Index is just the name. No, the name given to our iterator variable, and we would like to use the function range to get the length of our list. How many is the length of our list? If we don't know, for example, we have a very long list, no? For example, we don't know that this is 3 elements. We have a wide number of lists, very long list, for example. Therefore, we don't know exactly what is the length of our list. Right now, we know because it's only welcome OOP students. But what if we have a very long list? So we will not know until we do this function. No? This function here, len, is used to denote the length of our variable here, which is the list. Okay? So when we try to, for example, no, as an example, I will just show you. So let's try to have this list, no, here, and I will try to use the length. Okay, let's try to know the length of our list. Okay, so this function here is used to identify the length of the list. Right now, when we try to execute this, it will tell us that the list contains 3 elements. So if we add more elements, for example, we add 4, 5, and 6, and we try to execute this, this will become 6 elements. So definitely this is very useful, no? If you try to check the length of your list, no, or the length of your variable, okay, whether it is a list, whether it is an array, whether it is a tuple or a dictionary, you can find the length by using the function len. Okay, and right now we have these 3 elements in this list. We already know that, and we now want to print this list depending on the index. Okay, so let's try to execute this. So it will now print according to the index. Our index will iterate. Okay, so index 1, this is index 1. Actually, this is index 0. No? You have learned this from C language and C++. No? In executing in the list, the first element is what we call the zeroth element. So therefore, the zeroth element is the first element, and so on. No? If this is the zeroth element, this is the first, and this is the second. So by number, this is 0, this is 1, and this is 2, according to the index. Okay, so if we want to print, for example, in this example, I'll try to add another cell here. Okay, in the list, if you want to print, for example, if you want to print for the first element only, we try to print it like this, right? So that will be welcome. But if you want to print OOP, you change it to 1 because that's the first element. Okay, if you want to print the students, we put here number 2. Okay, okay, and if you want to print the last element, that is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that is the 5th, so you put 5 here. Okay, so to print 6. But if you put something here, for example, you put number 6 here, it's beyond, no, the range of the list, so you will encounter an error. No? So you see from here, the index error is encountered, wherein the list of index that you write here, no, the index that you put here, that means that is out of range of the list. Okay, of the list, because the list is until only 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, we have only 0 to 5. So if you put an index of 6, it will give you an error of list index out of range. Alright, so that will be the case for this example. Now let's go back here. Okay, this is another example. We have how many? We have a list here with a combination of integers and a string, no? And that string is my name, which is Jonathan. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the string Jonathan. So let's try to print this. Okay, and what will be the output? So definitely it will print all the elements of the string because of this function for index in range length of the list. So how many it is, it will print all the elements of the string. Okay, so that's how we can print the number of elements. Now, in using for, no, if while loop can use else statements, we can also use else statements with for loops. Therefore, we can combine else statements with for loop like in while loop. But as there is no condition in for loop based on which the execution will terminate, so the else block will be executed immediately after for block finishes execution. That means if this execution or is this statement will be finished, it will now print the following. Now, if there is no statement here to follow, the else statement here will just print this following string. Okay, so as an example, it will print welcome OOP students, and right after that, it will print the else statement here. Okay, like that. Now, welcome OOP students, and then it says good luck students. We also have what we call nested loops. No? In Python programming, it allows us to use one loop inside another loop, and it should follow section shows. The following section shows few examples to illustrate the concept. No? The syntax for that is this. No? So the syntax for that is like this. No? Kaya lang hindi siya nag-display properly when I try to print. But actually, it should be like this. No? So we have to use a for keyword here, and then we have an iterator variable in sequence, no? And right after you press enter, it will proceed with the indented line here. And if you proceed with creating another loop here for an instance of a for in loop, you will use another for and then another iterator variable. It may be different from this one, okay, in this sequence, okay. So this sequence can be different from this sequence, or they can be the same. But when you press enter, you will see now that the statements here should follow the standard, which is an indented. So that means when you see a for loop here and another for loop here, the statement following this for loop should be indented as well. Okay, that means this is a block. These statements belong, okay, these statements, statement this one, statement in line 8 and statement in line 9 belongs to the for loop in line 7. However, this whole for loop, no, this whole for loop statement from 7 to 9, they belong to the for loop in line number 6. Okay? Now, the syntax for a nested while loop statement in Python programming language is as follows. So this is a syntax, no, for a nested loop, no. Typically, like a for loop, we have a while expression and then another while expression inside it, and then the rest of the statements. Now, there's a final note here on loop nesting. Okay, we can put any type of loop inside of any other type of loop. For example, we have a while loop here, and then we have a for loop station, or for loop statement here. Or we can have a for loop here, and we can have a while expression here. Okay, so we can combine. Okay, like in this example, we have, this is a Python program to illustrate nested for loops in Python. Okay, so for I here is our iterator variable, so it can change definitely. Okay, it can change. Okay, so our range will be from 1 up to 5. So therefore, so if we try to print this one, just this one, the I, if we try to print I, okay, it will definitely only print 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, but here we have another looping statement, no? So for J in range of I, so therefore this another for loop inside will try to iterate, no, or traverse using this iterator variable J in our range, no? And what is our range? Our range now will become I instead of range 1 to 5. Okay, and then we're going to print this statement. And what is this statement? We're printing the I along with some spaces. Okay, and then this one doesn't do anything. It doesn't print anything because of the blank statement here. We'll just know that this can be another line, no, to print. For example, we can put anything inside here. Okay, just illustrate the nested for loops in Python. We can just execute this. What will be the output? The output will be to print the first element. Okay, it will print the first element because of this. Okay, and then it will print, because it's iterating in our range, it will print 2 and 2 here. Okay, and then it will print 3, 3, 3, and then it will print 4, 4, 4. Basically, that will be the output of this particular example. Okay, in loop control elements, so I think before we proceed with this, can we have there are some questions here. Pwede rin po as long as wala pang semicolon. What is this question all about, Mr. Von Possel? I haven't seen it because I am in full screen mode kanina. Comparing lang with C. Okay. Okay. Yes, oo. Sa C language kasi, may mga semicolons tayong ginagamit in each line of expression, di ba, or statement. If you try to compare it with other programming language, mas mabusisi kasing gamitin yung C language. Alright? Are there any more questions related to this? So if there are no more questions, let's pause for a 10-minute break. Let's have a break. Okay, now we're back with our lecture. As I have said, as I have shown you some examples of how we can use for loops or nested loops. Okay, that's like in this example, this is a nested loop. However, we only have one example of nested loops here, no? Maybe later we can just add some more examples. Let's proceed with discussing about loop control statements, no? And what are loop control statements? Actually, when we create a loop control statement, it definitely allows us to do some variations in terms of our looping statements. Okay, what do I mean by that? The loop control statements, it changes the execution from its normal sequence. So let's say we have this following sequence of statement, for example, we can actually change the execution of this, no, using a loop control statement. So therefore we can say that a loop control statement can change the execution of our normal sequence, no? So when the execution leaves a scope, we know for a fact that the execution of a loop always comes with the block of code, no, within that particular loop that you use. For example, a while block statement or a for in block statement. So when execution leaves a scope, all automatic objects that were created in that scope are destroyed. So you'll have to understand this later when we have some examples, no? So remember that all the automatic objects, meaning whatever it is inside that particular loop, when it encountered this loop control statements, it redirects, no? It changes the execution of our normal sequence. And Python supports the following control statements. Number one is the continue statement, no? Wherein whenever the Python compiler sees the continue statement, it returns the control to the beginning of the loop. Like in this example, we have a for loop here, and inside the for loop we have an if statement. Okay, and we have a continue statement here. Okay, so we don't have any more statement aside from the continue. Okay, and then after this, it will print the current letter, which is equal to the letter that we assume that the variable here is the letter. Okay, but here we can say that the variable here will be equal to 10. Okay, so let's try to simulate this example. Let's try to execute this, and what is the meaning of the continue statement that is placed in the if block statement. Okay, so you can see from here, it is printing, okay, it is printing all the letters of our string except E and S. Why? Because of the continue. Okay, it will in this statement, no, we know for a fact that it's printing all the letters, but when it sees the letter is equal to E or S, it will skip because of the continue. So therefore, to explain to you the function of the continue here, it says here that if we use the continue statement, it returns the control to the beginning of the loop. So when it sees W, okay, so it will print W. Now it sees now E and S, okay, so it will not print E or S, but it will print the current letter, okay. And what is the letter that will be printed here? No? We have a loop here. For loop, it will print all the strings in this, it will print all the character in this string, welcome students, okay. So definitely the first loop here is to print W, capital W, okay. When it sees E, it will skip and it will go back printing the next letter, which is L. Then it will print C, O, and M. And right here you will see that there is a blank space here, but we're not talking about the blanks, we're talking about the E here again, no? If the letter encounters an E or an S, it will continue to print the other strings except E or S. So therefore the contents of the printing will now have 10 variables, which has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No? 10 letters only. Okay? So, excluding the blank space or the white space. So, definitely that will be the case. No? So, the continue here will instead of printing the current letter, because the letter has found an E character or an S character here, it will not print E or it will not print S, but it will print the next letter in our string. So therefore our output will now be WLCOM and then blank space and then TUD and T. Okay, now for the break statement, okay, this is another loop control statement. This is a statement where it brings control out of the loop. So for example, if you want to go out of the loop, now like in this case, we're printing, this is our iterator variable, all the elements of this string or all the characters of this string again. But if it sees, okay, an E or an S, it will now break out of the loop. Okay, it will break out of the loop and it will print what is the current letter. And let us see what is the answer here. The answer here will now be E. Because it has found the E, it break out of the loop, and whatever it is, the current letter that it is seeing, which is E, it will now print the E. But you see here, there are no more output because it has only found E, and we have break statement here controlling us to break out of the loop. Okay, so when we break out of the loop, because this for loop statement is from 1 to 6, and we issued the break statement here, it will break out of the loop, and anything that will be after any statement that follows this for loop statement, their for loop block will be executed, which is in this case we have to find an E or S in our string, and when it does, it will break out of the loop because of the break statement, and it will print only what it has found. So if we try to change this, for example, if we try to change it to let's say letter W, so right away I think it's going to print only W. Okay, you see, it has broken out of the loop because of the break statement. Okay, so that will be the case for the explanation of the continue and the break statement. We also have what we call a pass statement. Okay, what is a pass statement? So actually we use pass statement to write empty loops. So pass is also used for empty control statement, function, and classes. So we can use pass in any kind of statement, no? Either it is a function or any class that we make, no? You will see that later on in our later topics. But in this example, no, we are creating an empty loop here, no? So we have a for loop with an iterator variable of letter, meaning that we are looping within the strings, no? So we have welcome students, and then we put here pass. So that means we are creating an empty control statement. Okay? We are using this pass statement to write empty loops. So it will loop, but it doesn't mean anything, no? It doesn't mean anything because it's a blank or an empty loop that we have created here. Okay? And finally, since we are creating an empty loop, it will now proceed right away with line number 4, which is to print the last letter, which is letter S. Okay? So let's try to actually print this. So you see here that the last letter is letter S. So we're created an empty loop. Okay, it has loop. Actually, it has loop, no? And it has found the last string here, or last element of the string, which is the character S, and we print it here. Okay. Now, how for loops works internally. Now, before we proceed with this, you should have a prior understanding of Python iterators, no? So let's see how simple for loops looks like. Okay, so for example, we have a list here, no? So this is a list. Why? Because it's the elements are contained inside the square brackets. So we have apple, orange, and banana. So these for loops will iterate on each of the element of our list, which is fruits. Okay, so you can imagine that the iterator variable that we use here is fruit. Fruit is different from fruits. Okay, fruit is used without S because we use it as a iterator variable. Okay, and the name of our list is fruits with S. Okay, so let's try to iterate for each element in our fruits list, and let's try to print our fruit or each element. So we have apple, orange, and banana. So here we can see the for loops iterates over an iteratable or iterable object fruits, which is a list. So definitely we're not only contained to lists, lists, sets, dictionary. These are few iterable objects, while an integer object is not an iterable object. So therefore, for example, if your list is an integer, no, you cannot iterate on that. Okay, so we'll have an example of that later. For loops can only iterate over iterable object such as list, set, dictionary, tuple, or string. Okay, now with the help of the above example, let's dive deep and let's see what happens internally here. Number one, what you should know. Okay, number one, we should make a list, and remember that the list should be an iterable list, no? Which means an iterable object should be inside that list with the help of the iter function. Okay, run an infinite while loop and break only if the stop iteration is raised. Okay, now in the try block, we fetch the next element of fruits with the next function, and then after fetching the element, we did the operation to be performed in with the element. For example, we can print the fruit, okay, like in this example. So this is an example of that, no? So we have a list of fruits here, apple, orange, and banana. Now we can create an iterator object. So our iterator object should be equal to we will use the function iter. That means we will iterate in our list, which is fruits, and then we create an infinite while loop. So infinite while loop means while true. So while this condition is true, that's an infinite while loop. Okay? Then we can try, for example, the fruit, and then we can iterate on the next object in our iterator object. Okay? And then we can print fruit. Now, the try here is used to denote that we can actually iterate, no, accordingly until the last object of this particular list. Except, the except here is always in partner with try. Okay? So when you use the try, you should have an except. So what is stop operation? Oh, stop iteration. This is just a name. Okay? You can change the name if you want. Okay? So that means if the stop iteration is raised, meaning if you want to break out of this loop, because this loop will continue to loop forever, right? Because of the while condition, which is true. It will continue to loop forever. However, if you want to stop from iterating on this object or in this list, you need to use except. Okay? Wherein the content of this stop iteration is to break out of the loop. Okay? So we can see that under the hood, we are calling iteration and next method. So actually, we don't need to use this, no? We don't need to use this actually. This is just to show you what's inside the for loop statement, no? So when we take a look at for loop statement, it's actually using a while loop statement with a try, an except, and a break statement. Okay? Another example, no? For example, this function here is a function that allows us to iterate, no? Because we use an an iteration variable here, but in reverse, no? Meaning it will definitely print all the list, but in reverse order because of the function reverse here, no? For example, our list contains apple, orange, and banana. So when it tries to print I, it will print first banana, and then orange, and then apple. Okay, so let's try to execute this. So let's try first to execute this one. This one is just the same, no? Of iterating this example. This is just the same as this, because as I've told you, this is just to show you what's inside the for loop statement. Okay? This is just to explain to us that while we are executing for loop, we are actually using a while statement with an infinite while loop, okay, using try and except and a break method, no? Now, in this case, in this example, as I've told you, we're trying to loop reversely. Okay, so we can print this one, and we can see that in reverse, the contents of the list A contains banana, orange, and apple. Okay, so that's for how we can use the different loops and control statement in Python. Okay, now let's proceed with Python data types. Okay, so data types are the classification or categorization of data items. Now, actually, it represents the kind of value that tells us what operations can be performed on a particular data. Since everything is an object in Python programming, data types are actually classes and variables, or an instance object of these classes, no? So we'll have some examples of this later. You will understand about classes and instances later in our object-oriented topics. The following are the standard or built-in data type of Python. Now, we have a numeric data type, we have a sequence data type, we have a Boolean data type, we have a set data type, and a dictionary data type. So we'll try to study and give some example of this one by one. Okay, let's proceed here by executing this. Now, this is how we can actually insert an image in our Jupyter notebook. No, so you can copy the code if you want. No, so if I executed that, I can show you. This is an image of the different Python data types. Now we have 5. No, numeric, dictionary, Boolean, set, and sequence. In numeric, we have an integer type, the whole number, the float or the double in C language. Okay, the float is the decimal or the fractional, and the complex number. No, we'll have some example of this later. And in the sequence type, we have some examples such as the strings. No, we have used the strings before. We also have list and the tuple. Okay, so strings, list, and tuple are all part of the sequence type. Okay, and we also have set and a Boolean and dictionary and the numeric. Okay, for the numeric, okay, of course, these are values or data types that has a numeric value. Okay, and numeric value can be an integer, it can be a floating number, or even complex number. So you already know about this. No, some of the examples are given here. So of course, integers are whole number. No, it's like 1, 2, 200, 1000, 10,000 without fractional or decimal. While the float, okay, it is represented by float class. Okay, it can be a real number with floating point representation, no? Or it can be a decimal point. Optionally, the character E or E followed by a positive or negative integer will be appended to specify it as a scientific notation. While the complex numbers are represented by a complex class. No? Like for example, it can be given as a real number and an imaginary number. Now, for example, negative 2 plus 3j. No? 3j here represents an imaginary number. So if we combine a real number, negative 2, to a positive 3j, which is an imaginary number, that gives us a complex number. And that complex number can also be interpreted in Python. Okay? Now, the type function is used to determine the type of the data type. Okay? So, here, we have a, I want you to see some representations here of a whole number. And this is just to give us the type of the variable being used. No? So, this type function, it is used to denote what type of variable is A. We know that that's an integer, right? And this 5.0 is a float. So definitely it will print that is a float. And this one, C, which is composed of 2 plus 4j, that's a complex number. Then definitely when we try to issue the command type C, that will give us a complex number. So let's try to execute. You see that the type of A variable is a class. It belongs to a class called integer, and B here belongs to a class called float, while C, since it's a complex number, it belongs to a class called a complex data type. Okay, so the type here is very important. No, if you don't know the data type of a certain number, so you need to use type, and then of course you need to use the parentheses, no, the parentheses, and enclose that parenthesis is the name of the variable. Okay, now for the sequence type in Python, sequence is actually an ordered collection of similar or different data types, and sequences allows us to store multiple values in an organized and efficient fashion. And there are several sequence types such as string, list, and tuple. No? Let's give some examples. A string is an array, no, or of bytes representing Unicode characters. Now, for example, a name is a string, no? For example, your name, when you try to use your name is equal to, for example, Jonathan, Jonathan becomes a string, no? And a string is a collection of one or more characters put in a single quote or double quote. Okay? In Python, there is no character data type. A character is a string of length 1 and it's represented by a string class. Okay? So if you want to know, for example, in this case, no, let's try to print this. So this is a string with the use of single quotes. So you can see the string is enclosed with a single quote. Okay? So when we try to print the string is equal to this one, no? Welcome to Python. But if we want to know the type of the string, so basically that will be the type, no? This is the data type of the string, which is a string class. That's the type, okay, of the string. Now, we can also use a string for double quotes, no? So, unlike in other programming languages, kapag Python ang ginamit natin, we can use a single quote or a double quote in a string. Okay? So, definitely, when we want to print that and also there is an inclusion here to print the type of the string that we use. So, let's see. Okay? String, so it belongs to a class of string, and it also prints I'm a Python enthusiast, whether it is enclosed with a double quote or a single quote. We can also use triple quotes, no? This is an example of a triple quote, no? You can see here we're using triple quotes because we have a double quote here of Python, no? So sometimes we want to display certain words in enclosed with the open and closed parentheses, or open and closed double quotes, right? So if we want to do that, we will use a triple quote here, okay, triple quote, and then enclose your chosen word with a double quote, and then right after that you can use the closing triple quotes. So if you try to print this one, it will print this one, no? So you can see here that there is no syntax error, okay? Because if we try to use this one, no, like in this case, if we try to use this one and this one, so do you think this will print properly? So definitely it's an invalid syntax, no? Or if you try to use, for example, just a single quote here and a single quote here, you'll notice that there is also a single quote here. Okay? Then definitely it will also issue an invalid syntax. So to be able to write a single quote inside your string and a double quote inside your string, you have to use a triple quote. Okay? So you'll use triple quote here, and you use also triple quote here. Okay? So remember to count before you print so that you will not encounter an error. So executing this one will give us the correct output. Now this one is just to show you that you can also use quotes that allows multiple lines. Meaning, for example, you can use triple quotes in printing over many lines, no? For example, this is a paragraph, no? It can contain many words, no? For example, welcome to CPE department, welcome students, etc., etc. So it will create a multi-line string. Okay? So similar to this one, no? So yan, it will print all the contents of the words. Definitely it runs over multiple lines. Okay? So you can use this on how we can display multiple lines using a single variable. Okay? Now, how do we access the elements of a string? No? In Python, now let me just print this so that you will see. In Python, individual characters of a string can be accessed by using the method of indexing. No? So you already know the indexing in C language. Indexing allows negative address references to access characters from the back of the string. Now, for example, -1 refers to the last character, meaning that this S, so although this is the 12th element, no, this is the silhouette, and this is the 12th element. If you don't know how many characters are there in a string, for example, you can just use -1 referring to the last character. So that will be -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and so on in reverse order. So this is in the positive order from the 0th element, or G, up to the last element, which is 12th element, which is S. So going back, if you want to access the last element, you can use -1 until -13 for the first element. Okay? So this one is a Python program to access the characters of the string. No? In this example, we have the following strings. No? Welcome OOP students. If we want to print the initial string, okay, so this will print the initial string. Okay? The initial string is this, definitely. Okay? And then, this code here will print the first element of the string, which is W. And in this case, it will print this one, is the last character. It will print letter S. So let's try to execute this. So the initial, welcome, and the first character is W, capital W, and the last character of the string is S. So we can also change, no, the index, no, depending on your choice, no. What are you looking for? So it depends on the programmer on what index he is trying to get, no. So that's how we can access our string. In terms of list, of course, we need to create a list first, no. So as I have mentioned, the list is always inside the square brackets, as mentioned here, no. So, and they are declared in other languages or other programming languages, and a list is always in an ordered collection of data. So it's very flexible, as the items in a list do not need to be of the same type. So I've shown you before that we can create a list with a combination of strings, an integer. You can also add another complex number there, as long as they are inside a square bracket. They belong to a particular list. Okay? How to create a list, no? This variable here is the name of the list, and we have an empty list here, no? This is our initial blank list, no? So let's try to correct the spelling. Initial blank list. So when we try to print this, so there is no output, no? Aside from the empty bracket here. Okay? That is the blank list. Now when we try to put something inside the list, it will now print what's inside that list, which is welcome OOP students. Okay? So that will now be the content of our string. So if we try to add more elements, no, let's say we have welcome OOP students, we have 3 elements now, and we access the silhouette element and the second element, that will give us the following. Okay, so this is welcome, and the second element is students. So the first element is not students, no, but OOP. So if we try to print another line here, and we want to display the first element, that will be the output. Okay? Now, how do we create a multi-dimensional list? So this means that this now will be an array. Okay? An array of a list. So we have one list here, as denoted by the outer square brackets, and inside the outer and the inner, the beginning square bracket and the outer square brackets here, we have another set of list here, no, separated by a comma to give you another list. this first element of the list will become our first dimension, and this will become our second dimension. Okay, so for example, try to change this one. So we have of course, can we try to change this, for example, 1 and 2, so that we can have a number instead of string or a character. So this now will be our list. So our list now will contain an array of 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if we add more, the content now will be, it will now contain an additional dimension, no, of the list. Okay? So this will now be the output, no? So we have 3 elements inside our list, no? We have a main list, but inside we have 3 elements inside that, no? Now, how do we access each element of this particular list? So we need to, in order to access the list items, refer to the index number. We need to refer to the index number. And we use the index operator to access an item in a list. Okay? In this example, okay, so let me give you an example of this. This is the name of our list, no? So if you want to access the first element, no? This is our first element, right? So we need to put 0. So it will now print 1 and 2. But what if I only want this character, no, to display? So we will add another bracket here, and this will be our first element or zeroth element, and this will be our first element. So if we want to just print number 2, so we will just access 0. From element 0, we are accessing the dimension 1. Okay? So that will be the case, no, on how we can access the elements in a list. So for example, what if I want to access number 5? So what do you think will be our what will be the content of our indexing here? Any suggestion? Okay, so I want some participation from the class. I want to just output number 5 here. What do you think will be the content of our list? Let me see who are listening.
20, sir.
20. Let's see, ha? Sino yon? Si Justin, no? So let's see kung tama si Justin. Sabi niya 2, because this is 0, 1, and 2. That's correct. And sabi niya 0th element, because the first element here is 5. Okay? So we try to print this. That will be 5. That's correct, no? That's correct. So you have now grasped on how we can access the elements in a list. So we just have to compute. Actually, we need to compute, no? So from the definition, we need to compute the offset as in list length list minus 3. But definitely this is more difficult, no? We just want to determine, no? For example, aside from Justin, let me hear from others. What if I want to access 4? Anong magiging sagot ninyo? Anyone from the class? I want to access number 4. Ano magiging statement natin? 1, 1. Sabi ni Justin pa rin. Sa bagay yung kanina ano yung kanina? Justin din ang pangalan, pero iba. Okay, sige. Subukan natin tong answer ni Hisola, no? Parehong Justin kasi 1 and 1 daw. Let me see kung ang answer nito ay 4. Tama, 4. So that's how we can access the elements in our list. Okay? So I think na intindihan niyo yung concept, no? And I appreciate your answer. So now, right now, in this example, we have a list. Okay, we have the list. So if we try to list all the following list, we can just issue the command list, and it will give us the following list. Okay, and then if we want to access the elements, so basic. Okay, and if we try to access the last element and the third element, third from the last. So that will be the case. So students and welcome. So that's very basic, no? Now, what is a tuple, no? It's also part of the sequence types of data types in Python, no? But just like list, tuple is an ordered collection of Python objects. The only difference between type and list is that tuples are immutable, no? What is the meaning of tuples? Tuples or immutables cannot be modified after it is created. It is represented by a tuple class. Okay? How to create a tuple? It is in between an open and close parenthesis. Okay? So this is how we can create an empty tuple. So we have an empty parenthesis here, no? So if we try to print this output, we have created an initial empty tuple, which is this one, no? Now if we want to put something here and print the output, this will now be our tuple. Okay? You will understand the difference of the list and tuple later, no? Okay, so we have here a list, no? And we can convert, this command will allow us to convert the given list. So we have a list here. Okay, we can print this tuple. We can print this string, and we can convert this list 1 into a tuple, no? Using the function tuple and then open and close parentheses, and we put the variable list 1 here. Okay, so that we have now have a tuple. Okay, so if we try to know the type, no, the type of data, no, it will tell us that this is a list. Okay, the type is now a list. However, as we have converted here into a tuple, it's still a list, no? The list is still a list. The data type is still a list. But if we, for example, no, if we try to convert this in a tuple, no, like for example, this list, we try to convert it, no, into a list, into a tuple, and we try to know the data type of this list. Now it's still a list, right? But if we want to make it as a tuple, so maybe we can make it as a variable. X is equal to a tuple, which is a list. Okay, and then we will now print X. Okay, what is now the type of variable X? It's now a tuple. Okay, so that in this case kasi, we just converted the tuple into a list and we printed it, no? It doesn't mean that we are converting actually the list into a tuple. We just convert it and print it. But if you want to permanently store this into a particular data type, like for example, if you want to permanently make it as a tuple, you have to create another variable and put that conversion inside and place your type of variable here. Okay, understood? I hope there are no questions with this, huh? Are there any questions from the audience? I hope that everything is clear, huh? Okay, now let's create a tuple with the use of built-in function, no? Here we have a variable named tuple1, and we have a function here, and we are creating a string as a tuple, no? Okay, let's try to do this and print. So definitely the string is now converted into a tuple, no? As we have as I have mentioned to you, when you set a variable and you use the function tuple to convert a certain list, any list inside this list will become a tuple element. Okay, so these are the tuple elements inside that string, because we converted the string into a tuple. So all the elements of the tuple are now individually listed here as a tuple. Okay? We can also create a tuple with nested tuples. No? For example, we have a tuple 1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Tuple 2 is welcome students. Okay? And we can combine tuple 1 and tuple 3. Tuple 2. And to make it tuple 3. Okay? So let's combine it. So tuple 1 and tuple 2 is equal to tuple 3. So this will create a nested tuple. Okay? So if we try to print tuple 3, it will now print a nested tuple, no? So this is our first tuple, which is tuple 1, and this is our second tuple, denoted and separated by a comma, and they are separated also with a parenthesis. Okay? It's like a multi-dimensional tuple. Okay? Note here that the creation of Python tuple without the use of parentheses is known as tuple packing. Okay? Now, how do we access elements of tuple? Okay? In order to access the tuple items, refer to the index number. So again, we will use an index number. So we can use indexing. We call it indexing in Python. You can use the index operator to access an item in a tuple. No? Like in this case, we have a tuple here. Okay? And let's try to know the contents of this tuple. So these are the elements inside our tuple, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's try to access the first element. You use the index 0. Okay? And if you try to use the last element of the tuple, it's basically the same. That is 5. And the third element, from the last, we have 3. Okay? So that's for the tuple. Another data type, no, aside from the sequences, is Boolean. And what is Boolean? No? From the word Boolean, you already know what it is, no? It's somehow, actually this is a built-in values, no, in Python, which has a value of true or false. So Boolean objects that are equal to true are truthy, or true. And those equal to false are falsy. Okay? But non-Boolean objects can be evaluated in Boolean context as well and determined to be true or false. It is denoted by the class bool. Okay? So we can now convert, for example, we can convert non-Boolean objects into Boolean contexts. Note here that the true and false with capital T and F are valid Booleans, otherwise Python will throw an error. Now we have an example here. If we try to know the type of data type of true, this is a Boolean character, no? But this one is not a Boolean. Now why? Because this is only small character, no? The T here is small character. Okay, so you can see here the class of true is Boolean, the class of false is Boolean. However, we encountered an error here because true here is written as the following error. We have a name error here that says the name true is not defined. No? So Python does not recognize this true, no, because the T here is not written in capital letter. Okay. Another variable type aside from Boolean is the set. Okay. So set is different from a list. No. Actually, set is an unordered collection of data type, wherein the list is the opposite. The list is ordered collection. No, sorry for that. List is an ordered collection, while a set is an unordered. Ibig sabihin, the data type inside is listed in a format that is not in order. Okay, so it can display, no, if you want to display a set, it might display randomly. Okay, parang ginajumble mo yung nasa loob ng set mo. Okay, so basically the data type is iterable, so that means we can also iterate in a set. It is also mutable, we can change the contents. And if you have a set that has many number types, no, many numerical types, remember that it has no duplicate elements. So even if you put many ones and you display, it will only display 1, 1. Okay? If you display many A's, it will only display 1A character. Okay? So the order of elements in a set is undefined, though it may consist of various elements. So how do we create sets? So we use the built-in function set, this one, okay, with an iterable object or a sequence by placing the sequence inside curly braces separated by comma. So the type of elements in a set need not be the same. So let's say we have an empty set here. Okay, this is our initial blank set. Okay, denoted by set and then open and close parentheses. That means we need to put something here, no, inside this parameter. Now you can see here that inside this we usually put a string, no? So let's try, no? But now we will now print the set with the use of a string. So what will the if we try to print the set, no, since this is a set, no, because of this function set, what will be the output? Will it output welcome students? So definitely not. It will only print the elements of the string. However, you can see from here that the elements of the string are displayed randomly, no, unordered list. And you can see here that although welcome students has how many E? We have 3 E's here. We only have 1 E here because there is no duplicate in a list or in a set. Sorry. So how many what else are duplicate here? Okay, capital S is different from small letter s. That's why S and capital S are placed here inside our set. So remember the rules for the set, huh? The rules in a set is that there are no duplicate. Okay, they are no duplicate, and they are an ordered collection of data types that are iterable. Okay, in this example, we have this example, welcome dear students, no? So let's say we print this, so we have the following list. So you can see now that the list, when it is printed, it is now inside like in this example, no, it is now inside a curly brackets. Unlike with the list, okay, in a list it's inside a square brackets. But if it is inside a curly bracket, then therefore that is a list. Okay, so yun yung case doon, so you can see from here, although we have written welcome dear students, when it was printed here it is unordered, no? Welcome students dear. So they are mixed. Okay, let's try to create a set with a mixed type of values. Now for example, we have numbers and strings. Now let's say we have 1, 2, 4, 6. Let's try to add more numbers. For example, we have 4, 4, and 6, and 6. So since they have duplicate, when we print this set, okay, it will not print the duplicates, but rather it will only print the original value. Okay, so it doesn't matter how many 4s, how many 6 you have, it will only print 1 4 and 1 6. Okay, and it will not print according to your desire, because Python will try to randomly display it as it is. Okay, so this is an example, no? So we also only have 1 because we only have 1 and 2, and then we have welcome, and then 4. Then you can see here that the OOP was written here and the students here, and the 4s, the other 4s and the other 6s are not in our list because we already have 4 and 6 here. Okay, now how do we access the elements of the sets? So as an example, we create this set. So we have this. So we can access by iterating, no? So we cannot use actually We cannot use indexing in a set, no, because we don't know really what is the index of this, no, because they are displayed randomly. But definitely, if we want to access the elements inside our list, we can iterate using an iterator variable and use the for loop. Okay, for I in set 1, then we can print I, and then we can print everything, no? So these are the elements of the set: students, welcome, OOP. Now, we can also check whether an element is found in our set. For example, we can print welcome in set 1, no? So it will definitely print true. But what if we find a word, for example, hello? Is there an hello in our set? So definitely it will print false, because there is no hello in our element set, in our set of elements. Alright? For the dictionary, so you have to listen carefully on dictionary, no, because this is very important. Dictionary in Python is also an unordered collection of data values, and it is used to store data values like a map, which, unlike other data types that hold only single value as an element, the dictionary holds a key value pair. Ibig sabihin, bawat element ng dictionary will contain a pair. The first one is called a key, and the other one is called the value pair. Okay? The key value is provided in the dictionary to make it more optimized. And each key value pair in a dictionary is separated by a colon, no? Whereas each key is separated by a comma. Now, how do we create a dictionary? Okay? We can use the function dictionary, no? As you have seen. But in a Python, a dictionary can be created by placing a sequence of elements within curly braces. O remember, no, para siyang set. Since unordered list siya, ilalagay natin siya in a curly braces separated by comma. And the values in a dictionary can be of any data type and can be duplicated. Remember those, huh? Whereas keys can be repeated and must be immutable. Dictionary can also be created by the built-in function dic, no? An empty dictionary can be created by just placing it to curly braces, no? Example, this is an empty dictionary. This is the variable, and this is an empty dictionary. So if we try to print this, it will print this is an empty dictionary because of this. And if we try to print the dictionary, it will represent this element. Now, if we try to put something here, like for example, if we try to put 1, okay, and try to print that, that will have a value of 1, no? Okay? That will no longer be a empty dictionary. It has a value of 1. Okay? But that is not the case, no? Now, when we want to create a dictionary with integer keys, so we can use this as our key values, no? And this one is the pair that I'm talking about, no? That means 1 is equal to welcome, comma, 2 is equal to OOP, but it is denoted by a colon, no? Comma, and the third element of the dictionary is 3, which is equal to students. Now, if you want to print all the elements of the dictionary, it will contain the following, no? You just copy this, and it will display this one. Okay? What if we have mixed keys? For example, no? In this case, we use a string instead of an integer, okay, to denote another string. And this integer denotes a list of numbers. So what will be the output? The output will be the same, no? We have a key value pair here, name, which is equal to Jonathan, and 1 integer, which is equal to the list of 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? So we can also create a dictionary with the dictionary method like this, but make sure that it is enclosed within an open and closed parentheses. and inside the open and close parentheses are the key value pair that you would like to create, no? In this case, 1 is equal to Apple, 2 is equal to Android, and 3 is equal to Microsoft. So when we try to print this, the dict now will be equal to this. Okay? Now with each item as a pair, we can also create, no? Typically like this, no? So this is another method, no, of creating a dictionary with each item as a pair. So we will enclose it in a open and closed parentheses because we are using the function dict, and inside that we can use the values inside a square bracket, no? It's different from this. It's a curly bracket, but this time we're using square brackets. Inside the square brackets, we're using an open and closed parentheses denoting our pair. So our pair will be 1 and Jonathan, 2 and Mac. So when we try to print this, 1 is equal to Jonathan and 2 is equal to Mac. That will be the dictionary created. Now, how do we access elements of the dictionary? In order to access the items of a dictionary, refer to its key name. So we're not using indexing here. You will refer for the key name. Keys can be used inside square brackets. And then there is also a method called get that will also help in accessing the element from a dictionary. In this example, we have dict as our variable. This is our key name, okay? And the key name has a value pair of student. Another key name here is name, and the value pair is teacher. Another key name is tree, which is equal to master. So if we have this, okay, so if we try to print our dict, so this will be the contents of our dictionary. Now, if you want to access the element, you can access it using the value of the key name. In this case, we use the function dict because, actually this is not a function, we use the variable dict because that's the name of our dictionary, and we use an open and closed square brackets and the name of the list. What's the name of the list that we're going to use? This one, no? So the answer should be teacher. Okay? The element teacher is the element that we're trying to access. What if we want to access, okay, the third element? Okay? So we can also use the function get. Can we use this with this? So let's try, no? So let's try, for example, print, and then we have dict dot get, and can we use name? Yes, we can. Okay, so basically it's the same as this, no? But since 3 is partnered to master, okay, 3 is partnered to master, the result of getting the number 3 will result to master. But in this case, we can also use the name of the variable and the function get to get the key value pair of the key element name. Okay, so that will be the case. So finally, we have this lesson, no? So before we proceed with this, let's have a 5-minute break. Okay, let's have a 5-minute break for this. I will pause the recording. A few little topic is remaining, so please bear with me because these topics are very important. Okay, let's try to proceed with the before we proceed let me ask if there are some questions so far with our topic. May kausap pa ba ako? Okay, let me see kung mayroon pang mga question. No questions pa, sir. Okay, thank you. Okay, dalawa lang yata yung kausap ko. Thank you. Okay, thank you sa mga sumasagot. Okay, let's proceed now with our last topic, which is indexing and slicing, no? This topic is very important, no? In this lesson, you will see how to access individual elements and sequences of objects within your lists. Okay? The list elements can be accessed using a numerical index in square brackets. Now, like example, we have the my list, and then the name of the index is denoted by the letter M here, no? The numerical index. This is the same technique that is used to access individual characters in a string, no? And list indexing is also zero based. In this example, we have food, no? So if we try to know the contents of the food, that will be spam, egg, etc., etc. So accessing the first element, that is spam, the third element, that is bacon, and the fifth element, lobster. Okay? For accessing the last element, you can either use, if you don't know the length of your list, you can use the function length of the list. This is the name of your list, and then -1. Okay, that will be the list -1 is equal to the last element. So that is lobster, no? In the list. You can also use food, which is equal to 6. However, in this case, if we access, since we only have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements here, no? 5 elements, including the zeroth element. We try to issue this, it will issue an error, no? As I have mentioned a while ago, because the list index is out of range. Now, we can also list elements using a negative list index, no? I mentioned this a while ago, and I showed you before some example. So this is the lobster, which is the last element, second to the last, and fifth to the last, which is egg, no? What will happen to this line of code, no? So this is an empty, no? Empty. Actually, it will print everything, no? Actually it will not print everything, but it says here that this is an invalid syntax because you failed to provide something inside this parameter. Okay? So hindi pwede yung ganito. Now, but if you put something like this, no? This will input list also out of range because we can only access from -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. Since we're using -7 here, that will be out of range. Now, what about slicing, no? Slicing is indexing syntax that extracts a portion from a list, no? If a list is if A is a list, then we can say that A can be sliced to the index number, okay, and up to n, no? It will return down the portion of some portion of A, okay, starting with the position of the M. This will start the starting position up to, but not excluding or including n. Okay, so negative indexing can also be used. Example, so we have this list. Okay, if we want to start accessing some elements, like from number 3 to number 5 elements, no, this bacon up to the lobster, okay, because we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but not including number 5. So definitely 2 to 5 will only give us how many elements? We have only 3 elements here. So we have bacon, tomato, and ham. It doesn't include lobster, although it says here 5th element, but it says in the rule the starting is M is the starting position and N is the boundary, but does not include the boundary. So in this case, we're accessing the 2, which is bacon, up to 5, but -1, no? We're not including lobster. We only until ham. So therefore, it will give us an output of bacon, tomato, and ham. We can also use it in the reverse order. For example, in this case, the -2, which is 0, -1, -2, that is ham, -2, -3, -4, and -5. But we will not include the -5. Okay? So that will be the case. So that will be egg, bacon, and tomato. Okay? So the beginning is -5, this one. But we will not include -2, which is ham. So until tomato lang pala siya. Sorry for the confuse. Kung na-confuse kayo doon sa una kong explanation. Okay? But in this case, we have the M. Okay? Remember the format. This is the format. The format is equal to M, or the A is the list, and then we have M up to N. So A denotes the list, okay, and M is the beginning of the slice, and N is the end of the slice, but excluding N. Okay, excluding N. So that will be the case for our for the explanation here. Okay, now if you want to access all the elements, you can just type a colon here, so definitely it will print everything. Now we can also omit the first and or last index. Now, for example, in this case we have this one, no? And that means it will start the slice at the beginning of the list up to N, but not including N. Okay, and then this one, M up to blank. Okay, M up to blank means it extends the slice from the first index, which is M, to the end of the list, until the end of the list. Okay, so this one, omitting both, will give us similar to this, no, which is to access all the elements. Example, so this one we have a blank beginning, blank M. So what will be the result if it is blank beginning? So that means it will access from the first element up to the fourth element, but not including the fourth element. Okay, so 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so it doesn't include the fourth element. Same result like this one, no? So instead of 0 to 4, we can write blank to 4. So we can omit the the first index and the last index. Actually, for this example, we omitted the last index, no? So that means that is starting from the third element, which is the number 2, okay, up to the last element. So that will be the case. So bacon, tomato, ham, and lobster. Same as this, okay, they will have a similar answer, no? Now we also have a stride that can be added to your slice notation, no? A stride is just like a step. Okay, so we will use another notation. Like in this case, we have 0 as our starting index up to the 6th element, but not including the 6th element, and the step will be 2, no? That means from this list it will jump, no, by 2 elements. Okay, so let's have this as our list, and let's see what happens, no? So you can see now that starting from the first, it jumps to the bacon, which is this one, because the step is equal to 2. Okay, and it jumps another one to ham, no? But if we put 3 here, it will have a different result. So you can see here from the spam, it counts 1, 2, 3, which is tomato, and it doesn't have another more here because we don't have another element here. Okay, so we have 2 here. Let's go back there so that you'll have a good example. And then this one means from element 1 we end at 6, but not including 6 with step number 2. So we have the following. So we have the egg. We started from the first element, okay, which is egg, and then tomato, and then the lobster. Okay, so we can also try the reverse of this one. Okay, from the 6th element we started from the last, and then up to the first element, but not including the first element. Okay, but we will have a -2 order. So that means it will try to display the lobster, okay, the sixth element, and by 2, these are all, by 2 is tomato, okay, tomato, and then after that we have the egg, okay, so basically that's the case. So this is our food right now, but what if we use 2 colons here, no? That means that is 0 to 0, negative 1. What will be the result? It will result into a reverse order of the following. Okay, so definitely tandaan nyo to kasi this can be helpful in some cases wherein if you want to reverse the order of all your elements inside your list, you can definitely put something like this indexing and slicing method. So that's the end of our lesson. If you want to know more about this, I have made you some of examples of that in the www.geeks4geeks.org. Okay, thank you very much for listening. If you have some questions, you can now your questions now will be entertained. Okay.